Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckbuilder.com. We're here with the January 4th Rivals of Ixalan spoilers. This set is amazing so far. I've actually cheated and kind of scanned through these first little spoilers, and there's some really cool cards in this set. As many of you may know, I don't want to be hyped about Magic at this point. I've been begging for a different game to try to get into, but man, did they do a good job so far with Rivals of Ixalan. I think that it has some very potent uncommons and commons that are going to fit nicely in Constructed as well as in their limited slots. And there's also a lot of cards here that should be affecting Eternal formats, everywhere from Legacy to Pauper to Modern. So there's a really good one that we're going to be spoiling today and talking about, I think, how it is going to work pretty well in the Modern scene and in Standard, too. It's going to be a great little addition. So anyway, we'll get to it eventually, but first off, we'll go with the Pitiless Plunderer. Whenever another creature control dies, create a colorless treasure token with sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. The Pitiless Plunderer is probably bonkers in the right combo shell. I'm super excited with this card with the Marionette Master because it creates 2 more treasures to then sacrifice. So I'm wondering if I can go, if this is just going to be thrown in my Godpharaoh's Gift Marionette Master deck, or if we can just try for like a Marionette Master deck without the Godpharaoh's Gift. Because what's really cool with the Master and the Plunderer together is you sacrifice the servo. It says whenever another creature. It doesn't say non-token creature. So you create the tokens, or if you have any other tokens out with the Pitiless Plunderer out, you sacrifice those. The Marionette Master will trigger off of those artifact servo token creatures dying, and then create another artifact to then sacrifice. So you can easily one-shot an opponent with the Marionette Master and the Pitiless Plunderer. So I think we'll be trying to brew around that. There probably are some other pretty sweet interactions with the Pitiless Plunderer. I'm thinking like Hidden Stockpiles gets kind of cool, because then you can start sacrificing servos and then getting the treasures to then ramp up to whatever. So I think that this card shouldn't be underrated. The body is nice. It's a 1/4, so it dodges Lightning Strike. And the Harness Lightning, of course, will have to have a little bit more of oomph with energy to be able to take this out. But the mana cost at 4, I think, is reasonable. I think that at 3, this would be a lot more playable. I wish it was at 3, but I can see this being justified at 4 because there is definitely some crazy things you can do with it. And even going back into other Commander formats and whatnot, this is going to be a pretty decent card to be throwing in a variety of decks. So anything that generates tokens, anything like I'm looking at Teysa here. I think this deck might go in Teysa. It will read that every time you sacrifice the black creatures to exile or the white creatures to exile a creature, then you get 3 treasure tokens behind. And I'm pretty sure with like the Nim Death Mantle and some of the other combos that this is easily going to go infinite with it. So Pitiless Plunderer is a good start to today's spoilers. We have 2 mana for a Dinosaur Hunter. When Dinosaur Hunter deals damage to a dinosaur, destroy that creature. So it's Death Touch for Dinosaur. This is just a limited pickup. It works very well. Your Pirate Shell for 2 mana for a 2/2. And bears are usually playable. At least your 20 to 23rd spot. You want to definitely be picking up cards like this. Sea Legs, 1 mana. Enchant creature gets +0/+2 as long as it's a pirate. Otherwise, it gets -2, -0. So it's a way you can actually protect your pirates. It is flash, so that is very, 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 very relevant. So against like red or against, this is actually really good versus ramming up red. I wouldn't put this. I wouldn't discount this from Standard. I think that you can basically nullify like an Earthshaker Kenra, or you can protect a pirate that is being Magma Sprayed or Lightning Striked. And not only that, but then it gets +0/+2 forever. So you protect for a turn, and then it can easily block some of the cards from ramming up. So I think that that's where it will come in sideboards. I think the Pirates will want this in the sideboard slot, as it is a versatile card, protecting a creature, dumbing down another creature. That's definitely not that bad of a card for just 1 mana. The Buccaneer's Bravado, 2 mana for choose 1, target creature gets +1/+1 and first strike, or target pirate gets +1/+1 and double strike. So we have another Temur Battle Rage type card. Of course, this is, I think, only really playable in a pirate shell. This is going to be very good in limited, but there isn't really a pirate. Is there a pirate so far that wants double strike? Is anything that has a deals damage activation? If there is, then Buccaneer's Bravado is really good with that particular pirate. I know that sometimes, is there some other cards that say whenever a pirate deals damage, draw a card, so you draw 2 cards, for example? I'm sure there is some, so we'll have to look over that. I wouldn't discount this. It's a nice little addition to, if there's a pirate that gets a very hefty attack too. This can definitely go it'll pair very nicely with that card. We have a card, I'm going to have to look up the English translation, Champion of the Twilight, a 5-mana Vampire Knight for 4/4, 3 and 2 black. When it enters the battlefield, draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of vampires you control. So at minimum, this is going to draw 1 card and lose 1 life. At maximum, you're going to draw a ton of cards. So this is actually pretty good in this. Of course, every vampire deck's going to want to pick this up in Edgar Markov. I think it curves perfectly with Edgar Markov. Sometimes the 5 is weird. That's kind of awkward slot. You want to curve up to 4, and then Edgar Markov is going to be trying to be cast on turn 5 or 6. And the Champion of the Twilight, though, does draw an insane amount of cards in a deck like that. And I believe that you can stack it with Edgar Markov to draw at least 2 cards. And it's really, really good for Commander. I think that the standard, it does have a 4/4 buddy for 5, because that's right there on playable. It does at least draw you a card. So you can compare it to like Ghalta. Ghalta gets a card advantage for a 4 mana for a 2/3 Death Toucher. If you have another vampire out, you're getting 2 cards. That's when this gets really good. Flicker type effects, this gets even better. This set is packed full of really, really fun synergistic cards. This is another card I think it has a little bit of work to. I think it would be overpowered at 4 mana. They could dumb down the power toughness though at 4, but at 5, yeah, it's definitely gonna be a curve topper. But it's gonna be a really good one. It's gonna fill back up the hand, and so say you curve perfectly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're drawing 5 cards, losing 5 life. Your opponent then uses like an Hour of Devastation. You haven't lost too much. You still have your ability to come back because you've just drawn a full new hand off of it. So of course that's a scenario that is not going to happen too often, but drawing 2, 3, 4 cards off this card is very reasonable. We still have Gifted Aetherborn in the set, which is a very, very powerful mono black vampire. We actually have enough, I think, to even to go mono black on the vampire list and still have kind of lifelink ability with it. So pretty sweet card. On to the next card, we have Mastermind's Acquisition. 4 mana for choose 1, search your library for a card and put it in your hand, or choose a card you own from outside the game and put it in your hand. I don't like this card because I don't like these type of cards in EDH. So it depends on what rules you play with EDH. If there is a 10-card sideboard, there's some rules that do say you have a 10-card sideboard, and that's this slot for getting cards out of the outside the game. Otherwise, it depends on your play group if you know what this is. But this is pretty silly of a card for EDH. For standard, of course, you actually do get a card from your sideboard. This seems pretty potent because it's 4 mana, so it's right there with it's just strictly better than the Diabolic Diabolic Tutor. And some sideboards, it gives you a game 1 sideboard option versus particular decks. So say you have like a board wipe in your deck, but it's in your sideboard. Game 1, you could theoretically put this in your main and then go fetch up like the Hour of Devastation from your sideboard. And so it kind of helps with the toolbox slots from your. You can run a lot more copies in your sideboard, or a lot less copies, of a variety of different cards, and then Mastermind's Acquisition becomes a kind of a duplicate of any card in your sideboard. So I actually like the design of this card. All right, we have the Zakama Primal Calamity, a 9 mana, 6 and 1 of each of the Naya colors. Vigilance, Reach, Trample. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, untap all lands you control, so it's a free spell basically. And then it's got 3 abilities. It deals 3 damage to our creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or you gain 3 life. 3 damage to our creature is pretty good. Destroy target artifact or enchantment is really good in EDH. But the gain 3 life for 3 mana is kind of lackluster. But you got to think that it untaps all those lands, and then you can use each of those abilities on that turn. So it literally says when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment, deals 3 damage to our creature, or gain 3 life. And then you could have any combination of those for the 9 mana, or just cast something else. So pretty cool design. It's weird though for if you cast it doesn't say cast it from your hand. Okay, so I was gonna say they worded this wrong for Commander, but no, they didn't. So it's pretty cool with Commander though. Then you can untap all your lands and just kind of have that free spell. Yep. Hornswoggle, 3 mana, counter target creature spell. You do create counter target creature spell. You create a colorless treasure creature or artifact that you can sack. Okay, not bad. So it's an Essence Scatter with 1 more converted mana cost that then ramps you up. These have actually tended to see they've been playable because treasures they make for some really good scenarios in Magic to have that extra mana, or in this case, if you are trying to use the treasures for any other synergy, it's Tezzeret, for example. I think this goes pretty well in Tezzeret because it's on curve with countering a spell on turn 3, casting Tezzeret, having an artifact at least out at that point to start to get the advantage out of Tezzeret. Tezzeret's a card I'm looking at very closely for any trends upwards to see if it's going to be playable or not in Standard. If so, I think it's definitely a buy. It's extremely low at the moment on both MTGO and in paper. Okay, we have the Resplendent Griffin, a 3-mana for a 2/2, flying Ascend. Whenever it attacks, if you have a City's Blessing, put a +1 counter on it. Pretty good card in Limited. I don't think it's quite constructed playable. The Raging Regisaur. This is a 4-mana for 4/4. Whenever it attacks, it deals 1 damage to our creature player. It's a cool little Enrage enabler, and it's a 4/4 for 4. That's not bad. Probably not quite playable because it's the slot of like the Ripjaw, but it's kind of funny. It is something that can actually trigger off your Ripjaw. But I mean, the Dinosaur slot 4 is already super crowded, and I don't know if this is quite there. It's gonna be great in Limited though. Sun-Collared Raptor, 2 mana for a 1/2 trample, and then you can put 3 to give it +3/+0. Not bad at all because of 4/2. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's a good filler card again for that 20 to 23rd slot. Same with the Sun-Crested Pterodon. It's a 5-mana of 2/5. It has Vigilance as long as you control another dinosaur. It's okay late pickup if you need a flyer or that. It's got a pretty good body. It survives. Isn't there a 4-mana damage spell? I thought there was one in Ixalan. So now we have the Blood Sun. Now I am going to bitch and moan and complain about Blood Sun because it's just the stupidest name ever. Oh, we got a Blood Moon. Let's create a Blood Sun. Derpa derpa. Sometimes the creativity of Magic just baffles me. It's just they could have named this anything else, and I think it would have been a better name for it. So it's basically a Blood Moon that attacks fetch lands still, but it doesn't really punish other lands. So it's going to take away a lot of the abilities of lands like the Ghost Quarters to Tectonic Edges to Field of Ruin to what other utility lands are played in Modern at the moment. Fetch lands, of course, it shuts those down. So many of the man lands from being able to activate. So it's pretty decent of a sideboard card, but I'm not quite sure it's on par with where it wants to be in Modern. Now, this could be a huge sign that they're going to ban Blood Moon, and now they have a replacement for Blood Moon Light. However, Blood Moon shines the most versus decks that have a lot of non-basic lands that have multiple colors that then can't tap them. And Blood Sun doesn't do that well against shutting down fetch lands if they've already been cracked. I mean, one thing about Blood Moon is it puts the fetch lands in weird scenarios. They got to go get basics, and sometimes it's not the easiest time to fix a 3-color or 4-color deck in Modern if everything gets, Blood Moon. If you look at like 5-color humans, for example, this Blood Sun doesn't really do anything. And against it, against Tron, it doesn't really do anything. So it's very narrow, and it's good right now, maybe as a way to deal with some of the deserts and some of all of these flip cards that are being flipped into lands. So we'll have to wait and see if that's worthwhile as a sideboard slot. But right now, I just don't think. I think it's just too narrow for both Modern and for Standard. All right, Mutiny, a 1-mana target creature and opponent control deals damage equal to power to another target creature that player controls. This is a pretty good removal spell. Of course, it's usually killing the weaker creature though, unless your opponent's playing anything with higher power than toughness or just something with Death Touch. The Mutiny works really well, but I think this is okay. Sorcery Speed's also awkward, so I don't think it's as good as it's not the most reliable removal spell, but it's still not terrible for Limited. Negate gets another reprint. Naturalize gets another reprint. Moment of Craving. This is a card that sparks some controversy. I think this card's actually really, really good because it's just what we need for Ramada. So I think that this is Moment of Craving might be the card that can shake up Standard. So if we get attuned with Aether Band, and now we have Moment of Craving to really be a solid card versus Ramanup. So this is Vraska's Contempt with 2 mana less. A lot of times you end up like using Vraska's Contempt on a card, an earlier card, just because you need to stabilize. What this kills is it kills the Crop Captains, it kills the Mages and the Beaumont Couriers. Well, if the Mage doesn't have prowess, It also kills the Earthshaker Kenra. Yes, the Earthshaker Kenra is going to come back. It can actually dumb down particular cards. Like if you need to dumb down a Hazoret, you can dumb down a Hazoret for turn and still gain that 2 life. And it actually has some pretty good like it's another tool that I think I'm gonna struggle with Marinette Master with. In response, they can give my creature -2/-2, and it won't do as much damage with the Moment of Craving. But yeah, this is definitely a card printed for the ramming up or other aggro strategies that are going to come out. So I think that this is going to be heavily played. Typically these cards were double black, so it's nice to have a 1 and a black. This makes it a lot more splashable and a lot more on curve without having to have that double mana source there. So I think this is going to be a very, very solid card. And then we have Pauper. I think this actually looks pretty good too, because it's going to be a good card against the aggressive Kathatha-Boros. It's going to be good against Burn, any other aggro-based decks, another deck that can kill Delvers. And still gain the 2 life. So do not discount the Moment of Craving. I think it's a very, very solid card. All right, the Azor's Gateway, 2 mana for 1 and tap, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand. If you have cards with 5 or more different converted mana costs or exiled with Azor's Gateway, you gain 5 life, untap it, and transform it. So this is a pretty cool card with Paradox Engine, of course. Every time just to untap it and then start get the advantage of drawing a card, then exiling a card. Of course, you can always exile land early on to get 0, and then you need 4 other converted mana cost cards there. And then it turns into Sanctum of the Suns, which you can add X mana of any one color to your mana pool, where X is your life total. Now that is pretty insane in EDH, adding 40 mana to your mana pool. This might be another one of those cards that people are going to really hate in EDH. So it's more reasons to play Artifact Hate, more reasons to play Land Destruction in EDH to kind of take care of the shenanigans of this card. Yes, you are televising this card, but I don't think it's that hard. You play it on turn 3, immediately draw a card, exile a card. It's also not bad because it has this like loot ability, but you're also looting and exiling. And so you're getting the advantage off of the cards not being in your graveyard, but being exiled. And then eventually you'll be able to flip this bad boy and have just insane amounts of mana to do whatever shenanigans, Torment of Hailfire type cards. We have the Arch of Orazca. So this is an ascend, add a colorless mana to your mana pool, and you can draw a card active this ability only if you have City's Blessing. I think that the 5 and tap draw card is a little bit tough. You might see these being played in control shells. I don't see anything against it once they have. But even in control, it's a little bit tough to have that 10th permanent out. I mean, that's really late game. And other decks, I'm not sure they'd want it. And the only strategy so far that I really think that the Ascend works is Growing Rights of Itlimic. And it's something that can generate a lot of mana and a lot of tokens to generate that lot of mana. So we'll have to wait and see how how easy it is for Ascend to happen. And then a card like this actually could be playable. We have the Dreadeye Brawler, a 4 mana for a 2/4 Death Touch Ascend. If you have City's Blessing, if you deal combat damage, you draw a card. So really good card in limited. A 2/4 Death Toucher is perfect. It's gonna stall the board out. Once you get Ascend, then it can start actually getting some value. I think Ascend's gonna be a lot easier in Constructed than it is in because a lot of times you get to 7 mana and enough creatures on board for Ascend. Okay, so here's another one we got to look up. This one is called the Arterial Flow. 1, a black. Each opponent discards 2 cards. If you control a vampire, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So first, right off the bat, this is going to go in one of my decks. It's because I do run these ones here. I run the Unnerve. It's actually a pretty good card in the now I can't think of my commander, the Noth of the Guiltleaf. And then I usually don't have a vampire. There's a few vampires I do run in the deck, but having your each opponent discard 2 cards is really, really cool in a deck like that. In Standard, this might be a good sideboard card if you're running vampires as a way to dish off 2 damage and discard 2 cards. That's not terrible, and gain 2 life. So this is still not even a bad card versus ramming up again, except maybe off curve, like they'll already have their hand emptied. And so I don't know if that's an appropriate, but you got to think too, this could race out like the Ferocidons and the Hazarats, and if they're already down low cards, if they like a first turn Beaumont Courier, second turn, drop 2 more things, and they've dropped 2 lands there, they could be down to low cards where they have to give up a card that they, do never want to give up at that point. So maybe their third or fourth land and then a relevant card, and then you still gain 2 life. So it might be worthwhile to play this card over. I mean, typically cards like the Mind Rots haven't been worthwhile, so I'm glad they're exploring with other options for this, like the Mind Rot type cards, to try to make them standard playable or even limited playable. So because a lot of times they're not limited playable. The problem with discard is some, if you draw it late, they're not relevant. They don't do anything. This card's at least relevant late, and the 2 life, 2 damage and 2 life could actually finish off your opponent, you know, if they're out of cards at that point. So pretty cool design here. All right, we have another one where I have to look up Disperse in the Wilds. Exile target online permanent for as long as that card remains exiled. Its owner may cast it. So I mean, it's okay. Like you can do this to your opponent's stuff, and exile something that is giving you issues, and then they have to recast it. So it just puts them back curve. So it kind of feels like bouncing it back to their hand. So I think a lot of people are going to disregard this card as being powerful enough, but I think for 3 mana that's fine, because you got to think of the tempo implications this is. It's a boomerang. Well, not quite a boomerang because it can't do lands, but then they have to recast it. I don't know. Yeah, from the hand actually is. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I don't know if it needs to be rare, because you can exile. There's some cool things with the Eldrazi in Modern. They can give fuel to like Wasteland Strangler. Keep that in mind. That's kind of cool. But I mean, would this be playable? It says return target non-land permanent back to its owner's hand for 3 mana. I mean, we already have cards like that, and that's essentially what this does. Other than it's even a little bit of an upside, because it's not going to the hand. It's going to this exile zone that's hard to then interact with, and then the owner can oh wait. For as long as that card is exiled, its owner may cast it without paying its mana cost. I read that wrong. I thought it said its owner may cast it by paying its mana cost. So that's kind of cool. So you can do it on your own cards to save it. That's not bad at all. Yeah, okay. And it does give you the ability to utilize this against your opponent. If it's like a sorcery or a creature or an enchantment or artifact, so sorcery speed things, that it can just mess up their you need to do this at their end step. They can't recast it until their main phase again. So you can protect your own stuff and stop what your opponent is doing. But I don't know. I don't know how I like this, because it's cast triggers. This works good with cast triggers. That's where it's going to shine. That's what I'm missing here. So its ETB is where you had cards like Cloud Shift, and because you get all the ETB effects, this is cast effects that you're going to, Dispersal Wild's going to really break. So, yeah. Anyway. Let's go on to the next spoiler, which is another one we have to look up, is Slaughter the Strong. 1 white and white. Each player chooses any number of creatures with total power 4 or less, and then sacrifices the rest. So this is a pretty good card against, like, Soul Sisters might want this in Modern. It depends on how the meta shifts up, because a lot of times I don't care about creatures with power 4 or less. I mean, you're getting rid of Tarmogoyfs that are 5/6s. I don't know. Yeah, a lot of times I do care about cards with power 4 or less in Modern. But in Standard, if we do get a big, like a Dinosaurs Takes Off, for example, and it has a lot of power 4 or greater cards, this is going to be a good sideboard card, especially when Dusk Dawn rotates for vampires to have some game versus either merfolk that get out of control, or, you know, a lot of those merfolks are going to get above power 4, you know, like it's power 5. Yeah, that's really tough. And they have to sacrifice them too, so it gets around hexproof. So, I mean, indestructible, not hexproof. So there might be some implications later on with this card. We'll have to wait and see how this pans out. I mean, it's another tool that we have in our toolbox, but 4 or less is very broad. And there's a lot of creatures that you want to be killing. It doesn't hit Glorybringer, for example. That's a huge one. Okay, we have a 3/2 for 4 mana, Fathom Fleet Mutineer. Human Pirate Raid. When it enters the battlefield, if you attack the creature, you may return target creature's owner's hand. So this is a really, really powerful card in Limited. This throws your opponent off curve big time. But it's kind of weird with the raid mechanic, because you do need to attack in. You need an evasive creature, probably, is how it works. But because they can block and kill whatever your attacker is if you really want a creature to go back. But if they don't, like a lot of the pirates have the ability to trade up quite well already. You're getting undercosted cards for higher power than your opponent's toughness, or they've already had some sort of enter the battlefield effect, and you've already got their value out of them. So Fathom Fleet Mutineer, though, does just put your opponent off curve. I like this card a lot. Any sort of bounce type effect, a 3/2 for 4 mana bounce something, that's that's pretty powerful. And you can return one of your own creatures if you want another ETB type effect. So these cards typically are really good, like the Cerberus Void Mage, when they were in their limited formats. Okay, so we have the Path of Metal. This is one of the cards that I am pretty excited about. This is a 2-mana legendary enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each creature that doesn't have First Strike, Double Strike, Vigilance, or Haste. Whenever you attack with at least 2 creatures that have First Strike, Double Strike, Vigilance, or Haste, transform Path of Metal. So you add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, so it's really good fixing. It's really good ramp even at this point. So on turn 3, you can actually cast the Path of Metal and then attack with a Vigilance. There's tons of cards that have Vigilance, First Strike, Haste, Double Strike for 1 and 2 drops. And red-white, that's the perfect color combination for that. And then it can flip, and you already have a land that can add for anything. And then look how insane these abilities are. Metzali Tower of Triumph deals 2 damage to each opponent for 2 mana. That's once per turn. You can keep just doing this. This is exactly what a red deck wants. Now, can this go into what are some of the formats we have at the moment that use red-white? There is a vehicles-based strategy, a Mardu Vehicles type deck. There's also a deck that just tries to use like servo tokens and forgets about the vehicle strategy of it, but they still use like the Toolcraft Exemplar. No, I'm pretty sure that Toolcraft is still in that. And I think that still works really well because you have the Heart of Cran has Vigilance, and then we have the Toolcraft Exemplar can get First Strike. If you run Beaumont Courier in the mix, you have something with Haste. So it'd be pretty easy to get the Path of Metal. And one of the things with the Mardu Vehicles is it can peter off later on. It needs ways. That's what makes Ramming Up so consistent, and where people have run away from Ramming Up is you have the ability to sacrifice it to do 2 damage. You have Hazard to pitch cards to do 2 damage. You have this renewable resource of damage. Mardu sometimes peters off. This, however, allows, and it also does fix for those unlicensed disintegrations, because this can add any mana of any color to your mana pool. So that's one of the problems in the past, too, is having that ability to fix with the 3 colors. I think we're very spoiled. We have Concealed Courtyard and Inspiring Vantage to help with that. And so this is going to be able to get that last bit of damage in. And then the other ability to choose a creature at random that attack this turn, destroy that creature. The only time this isn't going to be very relevant is versus like tokens. And most of the time, though, this is going to just stonewall. It's perfect because like you want to attack with a creature? No? Okay, then take 2 damage. So I am really impressed with this card. Glorybringer has haste, by the way. There are plenty of cards that can get this card online. And so there's a lot of cards from this set that I'm just super impressed with. All right, so last but not least, I think we have some from January 3rd that we didn't get to yesterday. This one is the Direfleet Daredevil. So this is the shining star of the set. This is a First Strike. Hey, there's a card that actually enables our last card. It doesn't have flash, though, so that doesn't quite make it a Snapcaster Mage. When it enters the battlefield, exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. You can cast that card this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were any mana of any color, and then you exile it. So it's a reverse Snapcaster Mage. This is without flash, so that might, but it does First Strike, so that is actually relevant. The thing is, like, think of all the really good cards, instant or sorcery, at the moment in there's Fatal Push. We're actually going to start seeing some. There's like a new Rampant Growth that's coming out. There is Lightning Strikes. There is Shocks. There is Unlicensed Disintegrations. There is Vraska's Contempts. There are a lot of cards that this card just does very well with. I don't think there's a lot of cards at the moment, a lot of decks that don't use a lot of instants and sorceries. So I think that 9 times out of 10, when you have this card, you're going to get value out of it. And you're using your opponent's graveyard as a toolbox. So Modern, it might be a little bit harder. I think it might be relegated to the sideboard because, I mean, it's going to be great versus Death Shadow. It's going to be great versus Jeskai Geist. It's going to be good versus a lot of the other decks that use Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Path to Exile, that type of stuff. But there are a few decks that this is just going to be kind of dead against. It's not going to be able to do what you want it to be able to do. So, with that in mind, though, I do think this is an insanely powerful card. Whenever you have a card that leaves back a 2/1 body that also gets value out of something, it is value city. So, the fact this is a pirate too, the fact that I have first strike, this is really, really good. Doesn't need flash. I don't know. Maybe flash would have been better because you'd be able to flash it in and then use your opponent's spell against them. But it's still a super, super spicy card. And it's solid. The body's solid. The casting cost is solid. Okay, we have some that we didn't get to yesterday. We have a Silver Armored Ferocidon, an 8/5 for 7 mana with Enraged. It is dealt damage. Each opponent sacrifices a permanent. Kind of cool. Late game for a 7 mana spell. Not too shabby. There's definitely ways to break this card and just make your opponent sack all their lands and everything else. I'm sure Commander Shenanigans is going to come in effect. I don't know if my Nahab deck does want this. I mean, it'd be easy to ramp this out. And then, yeah, I think I'll probably throw this in Nahab as, yeah, I can ramp this out after Nahab attack and then use all my other 1 damage spells, damage to each creature and each player, to then make my opponent sacrifice a lot of permanents. So I don't know if it's quite going to be playable enough for my Nahab deck, but I'm sure some other commander decks are going to eat this card up. Direfleet Poisoner, 2 mana, flash Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, target attacking pirate you control gets +1/+1 Death Touch. This is a pretty neat card as it is going to be removal spell at flash removal spell. So where I really like this again is I think I might start going heavier black on Godpharaoh's Gift, because this is perfect for Godpharaoh's Gift. Ignore the enter the battlefield, target attacking pirate you control gets +1/+1 Death Touch. This is just a 2 mana creature removal. Then you can get value out of it from being in your graveyard. So flash Death Touch, whatever your opponent attacks in, you can block, kill. Goes your graveyard, does everything I want. This is perfect for Godpharaoh's Gift. This is perfect for a lot of other cards. Pirates got a lot of love. A lot of these decks got a lot of love. The problem is usually tribal strategies are quite easy to break up there, and we have a lot of the cards from both Kaladesh and Aetherbolt Kaladesh, Hour of Devastation, Amonkhet that are still really good at breaking up go-wide strategies and really good at breaking up tribal strategies. So keep that in mind. They've printed, I think we have an overabundance of cards now for Merfolk, Pirates, and Dinosaurs and Vampires to make them viable. However, we have all the answers we need against those type of cards. But this is definitely another great pirate. Speaking of another pirate, a 4 mana Crafty Cutpurse. Flash, when it enters the battlefield, each token that would be created under opponent's control this turn is created under your control instead. So you have to flash this in response to something like a Splinter Twin. But this is also pretty good versus Lingering Souls. It's good versus Spectral Processions in Modern. The 4 mana is a little bit tough though. It's pretty crazy. If you're right now we have Anointed Procession decks that this can kind of hate out for a turn. Yeah, I wish it just had a static ability of whenever an opponent created a token, you get it instead with the Crafty Cutpurse, because it's a one-time thing. And then like versus Splinter Twin, it makes it awkward because if they have a way to untap it in response, then they can still go off anyway. Because it's already created, right? Am I reading that correctly? When Crafty Cutpurse enters the battlefield, each token that would be created under opponent's control this turn is created under your control. If it's already in existence, I don't think it steals it. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Someone in the comment section, tell me if I'm wrong or right about the Crafty Cutpurse. But so anything later on that turn, though, you would be able to steal it. So not a bad card. Not a bad card. I'm definitely think if there's any token-based strategies, this is going to help out. Versus that. Okay, we have the Trapjaw Regisaur. So this one, when it has Enraged and you exile a creature an opponent controls until the Regisaur leaves the battlefield. A 5/5 for 5 mana. It is competing for the slot of the cat, the lifelink cat, the cat lord, as well as the Crested Sunmare, so the Horse Lord, as well as the Angel of Invention. But it is still another Enrage card. We have a lot of Enrage stuff. It's got a pretty powerful ability with Enrage. I don't think it'd quite be playable in like the Eldrazi Taxes, or like a Tron version of it that tries to get Walking Ballista, and then they can cast this and then exile a bunch of stuff. I think it's just too the cost is just too high, and that's too many ifs. But I mean, it makes it this makes it tough for people in attacking and blocking. It's usually be bigger on turn 5 than most creatures, and then of course if you do have a lot of ways to enrage it, it's just gonna be a blowout. So fight-based cards in a green-white strategy are going to be really good. So Savage Stomp, we're thinking of that here. It can get rid of 2 creatures with just the cost of 1. There's another white creature, the Ceratops, that I think I didn't spoil it yesterday, did I? I can't remember where I got to yesterday, but I'm actually liking white-green dinosaurs. I know that red has some powerful cards too, but I think white-green has the really low curve and has a lot of cards that are just now extremely playable. So yeah, we'll look at them. We'll look at brewing a white-green dinosaur list for sure. All right, so we have the Nezahal Primal Tide. This is the Elder Dinosaur for blue, 7 mana for 7/7. Can't be countered, no maximum hand size. Whenever opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card. And you discard 3 cards, and you can exile and return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control of being an end step. It's a pretty sweet card in Commander. It's a pretty sweet card in Limited or in Constructed in Standard as your finisher for 7 mana. That's not bad at all. You have an easy way to protect it. Usually, if your opponent's going to try to remove it, you get to draw at least 1 card. So it's really discard 2 cards because you're drawing another card off of the card that they're trying to use to remove it. So I think that is pretty undercosted for an ability that protects it. I think this will see play. I think that maybe like the Approach the Second Sons might use this in the sideboard as a creature that then you have to deal with. It's 7 mana for 7/7. It's not bad. It's just 3 attacks where this just takes over the game. So it's a pretty sweet card. The Siegehorn Ceratops, 2 mana for 2/2 Enrage. When it's dealt damage, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So this gets kind of nifty with Whining Constrictor, as you put 3 counters on it. But it's also the Savage Stomp. Savage Stomp works really well with Siegehorn Ceratops, as you'll be able to put a +1 counter on it, fight something, and then get 2 more. So it's going to be a 6/6. So attacking it on turn number 3, attacking it with the 6/6 doesn't seem too bad. Also, which is kind of cool with this card, is if they do try to shock it, if you use a lot of like the Blossoming Defense type cards to then make it bigger, you get the 2 counters plus the Blossoming Defense. So it's I think if Green-White Dinosaurs does become a thing, this is going to be one of the key cards. So Savage Stomp is great, Blossoming Defense is great. We have the Heroic Intervention to help it versus non-Hour of Devastation removal spells. And we do have Search for the Wreckage still, though, that can take care of this. But Walking Ballista can go in the deck to enrage these type of cards. I'm sure there's some other fight cards. We still have not Armed Dangerous. We still have the Prepare to Fight. They work extremely well with the Siegehorn Ceratops and some of these other cards, the Ripjaw Raptor, in this sort of shell. So I'm definitely looking forward to brewing around a green-white dinosaur tribal deck. Thunderhead Migration, 2 mana. As an additional cost to cast Thunderhead Migration, reveal a dinosaur or pay 1 more, and you search your library for a basic land and put on the battlefield tap. So this is they dumb down the, why can't I think of the card? The card that just does this. I can't think of it at the moment. They used to print 7th edition, 8th edition, those type of, but they've usually made these 3 mana, or at least have another cost to it. So this is a card that specifically only goes in dinosaurs, or otherwise it's going to cost 3. And we have better ones at 3. We have a cycling one at the moment. We have an instant speed one at the moment. So, but for dinosaurs, this is really good because you can just reveal a dinosaur. You can ramp in your Ripjaw Raptor on turn 4. Perfect card to fix your Naya Colors. This is now we have Commune with the Dinosaurs and Thunderhead Migration. I think that we have the fixing for the Dinosaur Tribal pretty well. Tomb Robber, 3 mana for a 1/1 Menace. Discard a card. Tomb Robber Explorers. This is a pretty sweet card, as you just can continue to fill up your graveyard, and then if you hit a land off the Explorer, you get it into your hand, and you just can continue to do that. So it's a cool card for a self-milling type strategy because it's just 1 mana to keep doing that. And in fact, you can get 2 cards in your graveyard for 1 mana because you can explore and then throw it on the bottom. Or, I mean, throw it in the graveyard instead of keeping it on the top of your library. So another way to fill up your graveyard for graveyard reanimation type decks. The Menace is kind of cool. This can get quite big, especially if you keep hitting lands. It can get big quick. We have the Direfleet Neckbreaker. This is probably the Lord for pirates, I would say. Attacking pirates you control get +2/+0. So it does work off itself. This is a 5/2 attacker for 4 mana. And all of your earlier on-curve pirates are going to really get a bonus from this card. So this could put pirates, black-red pirates on the map, as we do have some good pirates in black-red. We have some very undercosted ones, ones with Menace, ones with Haste, that work very well with Direfleet Neckbreaker. The +2/+0 is crucial in a deck like this. We don't really have a token generation of pirates, but we do have plenty of those 1, 2, 3 drop pirates that are very aggressive. Carry Zev in this particular deck. Now it's a 3/3 Menace. Then we have a bunch of 1-drops that work well with it. And then if we even go into blue, there's even more 1-drops. So Direfleet Neckbreaker, I do think is standard playable. It does get hit by Magma Spray and Shock, so keep that in mind. But Kite Sail Freebooters now attacking. They're actually a threatening as a 3/2. They're now a Delver. They got rid of a card. And so I do like this Direfleet Neckbreaker. So here's another card that dies to that -2, for example. Jungle Creeper, 3 mana for a 3/3. Return Jungle Creeper from your graveyard in your hand. I actually like this card a lot. I think this is actually standard playable, as it's just a renewable resource. And this is definitely a limited bomb. So if you're in black, a 3/3 for 3, that's right on par with where you want it to be. And then it just continues to come back every time it dies. So really like this card a lot for 5 mana to bring it back. Dredge type shells too. This is kind of cool because it's kind of like a free spell to get back. I mean, it doesn't go back into play, it goes back to your hand. So you have to think about that for whatever that's worth. But it's still a 3/3 for 3 that has an upside to it. And those are usually quite good. Golden Demise. We got to that. That's where we got to yesterday, right? It's Golden Demise. So I think that this is exactly where we got to. Yeah, because we talked about the Rekindling Phoenix, we talked about the Fanatical Firebrand, and we did talk about the Golden Demise. So far so good. These spoilers are awesome. I am so far giving this set a solid A. For a lot of the synergies, it seems to have a lot more potent, powerful cards than Ixalan did. Ixalan seems to be the weak set, which is kind of cool for a second set. Remember, this set might be a really good set to invest in because it is going to be very similar to, I would say, Eldritch Moon. Now, if you go check out Eldritch Moon, a lot of those cards held value because it came in a very weird time. So this is going to come out, what, January 16th? January 15th is the pre-release. So January 22nd? I think is the release date, or summer 21st, 22nd is the release date for this. And then we get a master set in March. We get a few other things that are coming out in that time period. And people might just forget about this set. Eternal Masters had that effect on Eldritch Moon. People just forgot about it and spent their money on Eternal Masters. And this could be that. And there's some solid uncommons in the set. There's some solid commons in the set. And there's some solid rares that have a higher potential than a first set. So Ixalan, those cards are completely, that set has been open like crazy, open into oblivion. We had an entire season of limited events that required 6 Ixalan packs. This, you're opening Ixalan packs with this set. And so it's going to be a lot rarer than I would compare this very similar to Eldritch Moon. Not Oath of the Gatewatch, not Aether Revolt, Eldritch Moon. This is the one that sandwiches weird at the first of the year. And I think this has a lot of power in these cards. They even a lot. So look at like Infest type cards, or like we said, the Mind Rot type cards. They added abilities to these traditional cards that have been, usually they were just going to be Mind Rot, and instead it's Golden Demise this time. So, or excuse me, it's the Vampire one. And so you never know when those will see play. And they can hold a nice little price tag on commons in a second set at the first of the year, sandwiched in between 2 master sets, for example, and an unstable set. So do not underestimate this set. It's quite good. Or how much more do we have left to good old Rivals of Ixalan? We have 108 out of 196. So we still have some juicy cards. Probably a lot of filler cards left to spoil, but we still have some juicy cards to spoil. Let me know in the comment section below what your favorite card is. I know that this is going to be a miserable miserable set for me to try to do my top 10 cards from it, because I could probably pick 25 already. Ixalan was tough. Ixalan, I had to kind of stretch it to hit that top 10. This one is definitely, even the mythics, all these mythics are so synergistic and so juicy. So I'm very excited for the set. We're gonna have some good brew times ahead. I said I was gonna try to brew some decks with these Ixalan cards. I'm gonna try to do a commander deck. Have that done by Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll start looking at specific cards. So we'll do a live stream and try to. I have an interview tonight, so I don't know if I'll be able to live stream tonight, but we'll try to get a live stream in sometime this week and just start hitting this hard, brewing around with these particular cards and seeing how well they fit curve wise, how well they match up versus the current decks, and go from there. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckbuilder.com. Thanks for watching.